Absolutely. The trade imbalance between the EU and China is the sticking point for Brussels. Both Charles Michel and Ursula von der Leyen spoke multiple times about that 400 billion euro a year deficit. And President von der Leyen actually said, as you heard a little earlier, that President Xi purportedly agreed that this should be a little bit more balanced. She also claims that the Chinese side has shown willingness to clarify the rules on cross-border data flows. Now, this is something foreign companies here struggle with. The movement or transfer of information between servers and countries isn't that easy. There are a lot of unclear rules that really makes doing business here rather difficult. I've spoken to several EU business representatives here who have told me that China has been sending mixed signals by speaking a lot about foreign investment in public, but actually on the ground coming up with confusing or vague regulations. And this is something a lot of them struggle to comprehend despite their best efforts. So on the EU side, they talk about the preferential treatment of Chinese companies, the difficulties in accessing the Chinese market, and the overcapacity of Chinese production. This is why they speak about this unlevel playing field. It does seem like this Thursday, the Chinese side have told the EU, look, I kind of get your point, without offering any concrete deals. As predicted, no major announcements, just the promise of hammering out the details in further talks, high-level meetings to come. So a lot of talk, not much action. All of this as the EU elections loom ahead, and that event could affect the bloc's policy towards Beijing.
Yena, the EU and China are each the second largest trading partner for the other. How is it that this is the first in-person meeting in 4 years?
Yes, Shona, the EU and China trade 2.3 billion goods per day. So for sure, it has certainly been a long time for two such important trading partners to meet face to face. COVID-19 and those harsh measures that China took, closing their borders off, definitely have been a factor. That said, the reality is Beijing doesn't really take Brussels as seriously as it does Washington or other major individual states. And of course, relations between the two have been extremely difficult in recent years. Ursula von der Leyen, in particular, has been quite vocal about the EU's official stance, criticising in public China for being more and more repressive at home and less open to the world. Her promotion of the concept of de-risking particularly irks the Chinese side. She took care to say in her press conference this Thursday that the Chinese have a similar concept. She said, they call it self-reliance, and that, the EU doesn't want to decouple like it did with Russia. It's just important for their strategic autonomy. But despite the difficulties in their relationships, there's been a recent flurry in meetings, high-level meetings between the two sides. The EU clearly needs it because there is this war in Ukraine and because of this trade imbalance. But the Chinese side, too, increasingly needs this diplomatic flurry, too, because of its own sluggish economy.